You said, growing up, bounced around the country a little bit. Your mom was married 5 times. Myself, I'm a child that grew up in a divorced family, and I know that's tough. Like there's nothing more I want as a parent than to give my kids a solid foundation. And it's like that safety net. And I know when you come out of divorce as a kid, it's like that safety net and that cocoon of family is just, it's sometimes not there, and that impacts you. And you said, hey, I've talked to some therapists about this over the years to better understand myself. Same. I highly encourage that. Michael Hyatt was a great mentor to me, of like, most dudes are like, rub some dirt on it and move on to the next thing. And I'll tell you, like, everybody needs to work on themselves, because that's where it all starts.
It was partly the realization of how much time and money I was spending on physical health and business health, completely ignoring my mental health. Yet that is the filter that affected everything I was doing. It was the little 16-year-old voice in my head saying, hey, Sten, do more, do it harder, because that's what people care about, and that's how you get attention. And so the effects on me as a leader, people I think in the past wanted to be around me because I got stuff done, and they benefited from that. I don't know if they quite said, I want to follow him. Like, I trust him. And so last few years of my work has been like, how do I become that leader? Which partly is just being more transparent when you mess up. It's being more, vulnerable. And so for me, every other week for 2 hours, I'll be in counseling the rest of my life, because it is that mental health check. It really helps me be aware of, like, what's the trauma that I'm carrying around that it was my baseline. My baseline was hold yourself to a high bar, therefore hold everybody else to a high bar, and hide all the stuff you're struggling with along the way. So that was normal to me. So I didn't even know it was a problem until I started kind of being aware of the effects of it. And now sometimes healthier activity, it makes me uncomfortable because it's not what I'm used to. Healthier relationships, hiring more healthy team members, like, all of that is actually uncomfortable because it's not normal, but it's the right thing. And most of the time, as I get better at asking questions and getting to people's stories, we all have these stories. It's just, how do we get through the first few layers to realize, like, why do you do what you do? What are you really scared of? Why are you working that way? Why aren't you open to new ideas? So if somebody questions what you're doing, you feel challenged, and therefore they're questioning your value as a person. Why aren't you open to grow? Like, these kind of conversations are what we need to tap into. And the more successful people I get around, they've done that work. So I'm like, all right, Sten, buckle up. You gotta venture into that.
Yeah, 100%.
Brene, you got a good
what's
cry every once in a while too.
100%. Like, there's such a man. Society has done us guys specifically an injustice on, like, emotions are bad and weak. And I mean, I grew up as a farm boy. Like, it was always like, seriously, like, rub some dirt on it, toughen up. And, like, I'm taking nothing away from how I was brought up. It's just that's the mentality that my mom and dad were brought up with, right? And one of the things I know, Brene Brown kind of put vulnerability on the map. And those that haven't, she's got a great Netflix special. You should go check it out. But here, let's just talk about how this plays out in real time. So it's before we go live. I don't even remember how we got on it. It was something around wine or something like, oh, I grew up in Oregon wine country. And I somehow we were piecing together your journey. And you're like, yeah, like, my mom was married 5 times. And so I bounced around to a lot of different locations growing up, because you were vulnerable enough to share that piece of your journey. Because some people would hide that, right? They'd be like, I don't want to tell people that. I connected with you because I'm like, man, my parents also got divorced. So there's a little bit of shared suffering there as children for us, right? And that's what I've found is transparency and vulnerability as a leader. They bring people in because everybody's got those things. All of us, we're humans. And the more willing you are to let your guard down as a leader, show a little emotion, show, hey, I'm not perfect, I mess things up too. Man, people want to follow people like that. And they sure don't the leader that has no flaws, that's like hard charger. And so that's really cool to hear your journey and the self-awareness that's like, man, I was that guy. And I wasn't really proud of it, when I started to examine that.
Yeah, there's definitely, whether it's guilt, shame, and then you realize, like, no, I'm thankful for that season. You learn to have compassion on your younger self of realizing, like, at the time I was doing the best I could with what I had. And so you get to drop the shame and guilt and just kind of accept the story, like I do with my advisor journey. I mean, there's parts of that where I'm like, man, I'm embarrassed. Like, I want people to perceive me as like, man, he made all these strategic moves and he left right when he should have built this. It's like, no, like it was messy. There was pride involved. Like all those things were true. And to your point, I think that the connection you create, that we're all less lonely when we have those shared experiences and stories. In leadership, there then is a line where you're probably not oversharing. You want to be too buddy with your team members. So it was one thing for me to become aware and be willing to share. It was another to develop the language on how to share it appropriately. And I'm in that journey now. I'm part of a great group called Tin Man. Every Wednesday we meet and we practice this stuff to where you will in the future as a leader open conversations by being like, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm frustrated, but really that frustration is based in fear that if I don't lead well and you guys aren't finishing your job each week like you should, that we're going to fall short and not reach our potential. You open that way, you could probably almost say anything to those people in that room and they're going to receive it totally differently than coming in and being like, hey, why didn't you finish this week? Like, what's going on? Like, I pay you good money, like, which is out of fear. And if it's kind of a cop out to lead based on like the fear of you're going to lose your job versus why aren't you finishing this? In a great book, Necessary Endings, you still may have to have hard conversations, but you're going to give your team members and yourself and your company a much better probability of success if you venture into that. So far, my experience is a lot of business owners, they're very resistant to that. They'll spend money on development, they'll bring in consultants, but venturing into that, like, wait, you're telling me I need to do a lot of growth, I need to lead better, that's scary.